Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
It's strange how a person's voice becomes a memory when you haven't heard it in a long time. I used to hear Tyler's little laugh echo through the house, that half giggle he did whenever I tossed him in the air or told him a silly bedtime story. Now, after 10 months, I had to close my eyes and dig through fog just to remember what it sounded like. 10 months. That's how long it had been since I last saw my son. No phone calls. No photos. No updates. Just silence. A brutal, bone-deep kind of silence that grows teeth and eats at you from the inside out. It wasn't supposed to be this way. The court had called it temporary custody for Miranda. Just a formality, they said. A way to keep things stable while the divorce settled. But there was nothing temporary about it. From the moment she got that order, she made it her mission to erase me from our son's life like I was some bad decision she regretted. She changed her number. Didn't tell me where she moved. Blocked me on everything, including Tyler's school app. Every time I tried to send gifts or letters, they came back unopened. I even sent a letter to the school principal asking for a simple update. How my son was doing, if he was healthy, if he still liked dinosaurs. They never replied. Friends tried to comfort me. They told me to be patient. They said the courts would work it out eventually. But patience doesn't hold your son's hand. It doesn't tuck him in at night. It doesn't stop the ache in your chest when you pass a park and wonder if he's still playing soccer or if she told him I didn't care anymore. Then came the worst part. One evening, I got a message from a guy I barely knew anymore, an old co-worker who'd ended up at the same wine-tasting party as Miranda. He said she was laughing with her new boyfriend, talking about how he doesn't ask about his father anymore. That nearly crushed me. Because I didn't believe it. Couldn't. Not Tyler. Not the boy who used to draw me stick-figure rocket ships with Dad written in crooked crayon letters. Not the kid who used to point to the moon and ask if I'd ever touched it. There's no way a few months of silence could erase what we had, unless someone was working hard to make him forget. I sat in that small apartment, looking at the toy lightsaber he left behind. His backpack was still hanging on the hook near the front door. I never moved it. Couldn't. It felt like the last thread holding me together. Miranda knew exactly what she was doing. She knew I lived for him. She knew the quickest way to break me wasn't to take money or dignity. It was to take my son and make him believe I didn't want him. That's what this was. A slow war. A quiet one. No yelling. No lawyers shouting across courtrooms. Just silence. Silence that screamed louder than any argument we ever had. I didn't tell many people how bad it got. I didn't want the pity. Didn't want the looks. I spent most nights on the couch, scrolling through old videos of Tyler on my phone, him splashing in the pool, chasing bubbles, asking me what would happen if we jumped on clouds. Every time I watched those videos, I promised myself something. I would not vanish. I would not give up. Because if he had even the smallest memory of me, just one, that memory deserved to be protected. Miranda might have tried to rewrite our story, but I knew my truth. I'd been there for every milestone. First steps. First lost tooth. I was the one who taught him how to tie his shoes. I was the one who stayed up all night during that awful flu, holding a cold rag to his forehead while she scrolled on her phone. She could pretend I didn't exist. She could even convince others. But Tyler? He knew. Somewhere deep inside, he knew. I just didn't know how long he could hold on before she wore him down. The worst moment came in the middle of month 7. I drove past a schoolyard and saw a group of kids playing. One of them had the same backpack as Tyler. For half a second, I thought it was him. I parked and just watched, hands gripping the wheels so hard they ached. But it wasn't him. I knew it wasn't. Still, I stayed there for 15 minutes, pretending like it might be, just so I could feel what it used to be like. The loneliness in those 10 months didn't just eat at my heart. It dug into my identity. Who was I, if I wasn't his father? Was I just a man in an empty apartment talking to photos? Some nights I questioned if I should let go. Not give up, but maybe accept that he might not come back. Maybe he would grow up and never know who I was. Maybe she'd convince him I walked away. But then, on those nights, I'd remember the way he used to run to the door when I came home. That laugh. That joy. And something inside me would roar back to life. I didn't disappear. I was taken. And I would not let that be the end. That's when I started writing a journal. Not for me, for him. If I never got to speak to him again, I wanted him to know the truth. I wanted him to read it one day and say, Dad didn't leave me. He fought for me. Every page was a piece of that fight. The calls I made. The money I spent. The days I spent in front of the courthouse filing motion after motion. The nights I cried alone and still got up the next day to keep going. I wrote it all down. Not out of bitterness, but because stories matter. His story mattered, and I would not let someone else write it in lies. Then, around the 10th month, something shifted. A flicker of light in the darkness. A phone call. But not from Miranda. Not from a lawyer. Her sister. And with that one call, everything began to change. I remember staring at the screen while Adriana spoke, her voice calm but firm. She never sugarcoated anything. That was why I hired her in the first place. The court leans toward the mother unless we have something they can't ignore, she said, crossing her legs and folding her hands like she'd done this 1,000 times. And I guess she had. But for me, it wasn't routine. It was everything. I rubbed my hands together, nervous. Not because I was guilty of anything, far from it, but because proving innocence in family court is like trying to prove you're not invisible. You can scream and wave and jump up and down, but unless someone turns their head and actually sees you, it doesn't matter. That was the moment I realized logic wouldn't win this. Emotion wouldn't win either. Only evidence would. Cold, hard, undeniable truth. So I started collecting it. I'm not a tech guy. I still call my email inbox the letterbox sometimes, out of habit. But my best friend Marcus is what you'd call a digital bloodhound. He works in cybersecurity and once helped a bank recover 6 months' worth of corrupted data. When I told him what was happening, he didn't hesitate. Give me access to everything you've got, he said. Emails, call logs, account notifications, even the smart home data from the time we still lived together. I had years of digital footprints, photos with timestamps, receipts from school supplies I bought, online grocery orders I placed with Tyler's favorite snacks, bedtime playlists I built just for him. Miranda had painted me as a ghost, but I was everywhere. The problem was getting someone to care enough to look. Marcus went full detective mode. I still remember the way his eyes lit up one night as he clicked through a folder of auto-saved WhatsApp backup files I'd completely forgotten about. There's stuff here you didn't even know you had, he muttered. I leaned over his shoulder. Like what? Like this, he said, double-clicking a file. It was a voice message, Miranda's voice. She was complaining to someone about how exhausting it was to keep lying to Tyler about me. She laughed, then said something that made me freeze. He's 7. Kids forget. You just have to keep them distracted. 7. He was 7. She was talking about his memory like he was a puppy or a broken toy you shove in a drawer. My jaw clenched. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just leaned back and stared at the wall. That was the night I realized Miranda didn't see Tyler as a person. She saw him as leverage. Something to win custody over. Something to claim in a war. Not a child. Not a boy who cried when he scraped his knee or begged for 5 more minutes of bedtime stories. That was when the obsession started. I bought notebooks. Labeled them by week. Every time Miranda made a move, legal or otherwise, I wrote it down. When I tried to reach out and she blocked me again, it went in the book. When she posted pictures on social media claiming to be a single mom who does it all, Marcus screenshot every post and cross-referenced the time she claimed to be sick in bed with a check-in at a wine bar 2 cities over. Adriana was impressed. We're building a timeline, she said. That's what judges understand, patterns. But all of this, it still didn't tell me if Tyler was okay. I knew what Miranda was doing. I knew she was rewriting the past, but I didn't know what he believed. Did he still talk to my picture at night like he used to? Did he ever whisper my name when he felt alone? That thought, it kept me up. I used to imagine him lying in bed, arms crossed over his chest like he did when he pouted. I'd imagine him blinking at the ceiling, wondering where I was. If he still remembered the name of our dog, Rocket. If he remembered the way I used to carry him to bed, even when he insisted he wasn't tired. It's strange what your mind does when it's starving for someone. I didn't need new memories. I just needed to know the old ones weren't gone. Then something odd happened. One day, while reviewing screenshots, Marcus pointed out something small. A birthday post from Miranda's Facebook account. It had Tyler holding a balloon, smiling in front of a cake. But in the background, barely visible, was something else. A phone. Not Miranda's. Not the new guy's. A little red phone with a cracked case. My old phone. The one I left behind when I moved out, thinking it didn't work anymore. I leaned in closer. Is that? It is, Marcus confirmed. And if it still powers on, it may still be connected to a cloud account. We were onto something, but we needed confirmation. I couldn't exactly knock on Miranda's door and ask for my kids' access to the phone. That's when I got a text that made my hands shake. It was Brielle, Miranda's younger sister. We hadn't spoken in over a year. Her message was simple: "I think it's time I told you something." I didn't respond right away. I stared at the screen, half expecting it to vanish. But when I finally called her, she answered instantly. No small talk, just a quiet voice saying, she's been lying to him. About everything. She told me Tyler had been asking more questions lately. Questions Miranda didn't like. Questions like, why doesn't Dad come? Or did he stop loving me? And then she said something that made my entire world pause. He still has your phone. The old one. He figured out how to use the voice recorder. There's a folder called For Dad. I didn't listen, but I think you should. I sat there, breathless. For Dad. He didn't forget me. He knew. In a world where everything was being pulled out from under me, my 7-year-old had found a way to reach me without even knowing if I'd ever hear him. He trusted that I would. That somehow, someday, I'd find him again. And in that moment, I knew I would. Not for court. Not for revenge. For him. Because a father's instinct isn't just about protection. It's about listening for a voice that only you can hear. It's about knowing when your child is crying behind silence. It was time to fight louder. And now, finally, I had something worth shouting about. I hadn't heard Brielle's voice in over a year, and yet, the second I heard her say, "I think it's time I told you something," my stomach tightened like a coiled spring. Miranda's sister was always the quieter one. Less dramatic, less loud, less cruel. During the years we were married, Brielle kept her distance. She never took sides. Always hovering at the edge of family gatherings like someone who didn't quite belong but didn't want to disappear either. But now, she wasn't hovering anymore. She was reaching out. And what she had to say changed everything. "Tyler still has your phone," she said softly. I sat down, gripping the armrest of my couch, as if the weight of those words needed something solid to rest on. "My old phone?" I asked, confused. "I left that thing behind when I moved out. I didn't think it even worked." "Well, it works enough," she replied. "He doesn't use it like a normal phone. No SIM card. But the camera, the voice recorder, those still work. And he figured that out." I didn't speak. Couldn't. My mouth was open, but no words came. Brielle continued. "He's been making recordings. Audio files. A few videos. All saved in a folder on the phone. The name of the folder it's called For Dad." The lump in my throat hardened into something almost painful. "I didn't listen to them," she said quickly. "I didn't think it was right. But I know they're there. I was helping him look for something on the phone, and I saw the folder. He told me not to open it. That he'd show it to you one day." "Brielle, why are you telling me this now?" I asked, my voice quieter than I expected. "Because I'm tired," she whispered. "Tired of watching my sister lie to her own son. Tired of pretending she's doing the right thing. You may not be perfect, but you don't deserve this. And he doesn't either." There was a pause. "She tells him you left. That you didn't want him. That you have a new family." I shut my eyes. That hit harder than I imagined it would. "But the thing is," she went on, "he doesn't believe her. Not really. He asks questions she can't answer. I see it. He looks at the front door like he's expecting you to walk through it. That one broke me." "Where are you?" I finally asked. She gave me an address. It was across town. Miranda must have moved recently. I didn't waste time. 30 minutes later, I was parked a few houses down, heart pounding in my chest. Brielle had promised to slip the phone to me without Miranda knowing. Tyler had left it charging in her room after school. I didn't go to the door. I didn't want to risk it. Instead, I waited. And just like she said, Brielle walked down the street casually, as if heading out for a jog. She didn't look at me. Just dropped something through my open car window like she was tossing a flyer. The red phone. I held it in my hands like it was a sacred object. The screen had a faint crack across the top right corner. Same as I remembered. But when I opened the photo gallery, I froze. He had updated it. There were new pictures. His school drawings. A blurry shot of what looked like a birthday cake. A Lego set half-built with a caption, "Dad would have helped me finish this." My hands started shaking. I went into the file manager. Found a folder named For Dad. There were 23 files inside. The first one was dated 6 months ago. The latest, just 3 days earlier. I tapped the first audio file. His voice came through, small, uncertain. "Hi, Dad. I don't know if you'll hear this, but I hope you do. I miss you. Mom says you forgot me, but I know that's not true. I think she's lying. I asked her if I could call you, and she got mad again. I'm not going to ask anymore. I'm just going to talk to this phone and pretend you're listening. I choked back a sound I didn't even recognize. A sob, maybe, or a gasp. I pressed the back of my hand to my mouth and let the tears fall silently. He'd been trying, all this time, talking into an old phone because he had no other way. I listened to the next recording. Mom says you're too busy, that you're with someone else now. I told her I don't care. I just want you to come back. I don't think you're busy. I think she's making stuff up again. Sometimes she says mean things about you when she thinks I'm not listening. There was one where he cried, one where he whispered, one where he asked me to come get him. But the one that made my blood go ice cold was a video. It started with Tyler pointing the camera at his face. He looked so much older. He wasn't the same baby-faced boy I used to swing around in the backyard. "Hey, Dad," he said, wiping his nose. "I found this video in Mom's other phone. I don't think she knows I saw it. I sent it here. I'm not sure what it means, but I think you should see it." Then the screen went black for a second, then flicked on again. It was Miranda. She was in what looked like our old bedroom. I recognized the curtains. She was holding a wine glass, smiling into the camera, talking to someone off-screen. "He still thinks they love him," she said, laughing. "Can you believe that? He actually believes that kid misses him." Then she turned the camera toward the wall. The photo collage that used to show the three of us, me, her, and Tyler, was now replaced. Photos of just her and the new guy. Not one of me in sight. "I replaced every picture," she said, sipping her wine. "Watch how fast kids forget. You just need to keep them busy. Tell the same lie enough times and eventually it sticks." The video ended. I was frozen in place. For a full minute, I didn't breathe. Then I opened my phone and called Adriana. "We have something," I said, my voice hoarse. "We have everything." She didn't even ask me to explain. "Bring it to my office. Right now." Marcus met me there. He helped pull the files off the phone, organize them by date and type. By the time we were done, we had a neatly categorized folder of proof, audio, video, images, text metadata. We even had screen recordings showing the transfer paths. Nothing could be dismissed as doctored. Adriana looked through it all in stunned silence. When she finally spoke, her voice was ice. "This isn't just alienation. This is malicious manipulation. If the judge sees this, we don't just have a chance. We have a case that can't be ignored." I leaned back in the chair, exhausted. Not just physically, emotionally. My son had reached for me in the only way he knew how. In secret, in silence. He didn't forget me. He remembered everything. And now, so would the court. I sat across from Adriana in her office, my hands still trembling slightly even though I kept telling myself to breathe. On the glass table between us were the files, dozens of them. Each one neatly labeled, time-stamped, cataloged by Marcus like evidence in a high-profile criminal case. In a way, that's exactly what it was. Only this crime wasn't against me. It was against my son. Adriana had this way of being calm and ruthless at the same time. Her expression didn't change much, but I could tell by the way she tapped her pen rhythmically against her legal pad that she was ready to strike. Not emotionally. Strategically. Legally. "We're going to win," she said, flipping through the audio transcripts again. "But this isn't just about a win. This is about exposure. We're not going to ask for visitation rights anymore. We're going to demand custody. Full. Immediate. And if we're lucky, supervised visitation for her." Hearing those words should have filled me with triumph. But all I felt was grief. Grief for the fact that we'd gotten here. That the woman I once trusted enough to marry had turned into someone who'd rather burn our son's memories of me than share a fraction of her pride. Marcus stood by the corner window, arms crossed. I verified all metadata. The video was saved 6 months ago, then. "That's pain." He looked down for a second. "Your son, he's smart. But he's hurting." Those words stuck with me for the rest of the day. Hurting. Not broken, but close. I spent the next 2 days working with Adriana to prepare the case packet. We didn't just include the recordings. We attached school correspondence I was denied access to. Medical records she refused to share with me. Screenshots of Miranda's public posts painting herself as the perfect single mother, while Tyler whispered into an old phone just to feel heard. But there were 2 pieces of evidence that became the backbone of everything. Miranda's own words and Tyler's voice. The video Miranda made, the one where she smirked while saying, "He thinks they still love him," was damning. Not just because of what she said, but how she said it. That kind of arrogance can't be faked. That kind of cruelty comes from a deep place of control. She wasn't emotional or angry. She was delighted. Smug. That made it worse. But then there was the other piece, the clip of Tyler asking her why he couldn't see me. It was a short recording, maybe 30 seconds. But in it, Tyler asked with the pure honesty only a child could have, "Why can't I see Dad? Did he stop loving me?" And her reply? It made Adriana's jaw tense so tight I thought her teeth would crack. "He's not your real parent anymore." I said so. No emotion. No attempt to explain or comfort. Just a declaration of authority, as if a mother's bitterness could rewrite biology and love. When we played it back in the office, I looked away. I didn't want anyone to see my eyes go red. I couldn't believe a woman I once held through the birth of our child could say something like that to the same boy we both used to sing lullabies to at 3 a.m. Adriana looked up from the transcript and asked, "Do you want to include this one? It might be hard for the court to hear. It's deeply emotional." I didn't hesitate. Include it. If they don't hear it, they'll never understand what he's been through. By the end of the week, our evidence binder was nearly 2 inches thick. We had a timeline that started with Miranda's first denial of visitation and ended with Tyler's video message. Everything in between was logged, explained, cross-checked. Adriana said it was one of the most thorough family court submissions she'd ever filed. But none of it stopped the ache in my chest. I wasn't doing this just to win. I was doing it to protect my son. And every new piece of proof just reminded me of how much damage had already been done. That Saturday, I sat at my dining table alone, Tyler's phone in front of me. I hadn't played any new recordings since the first time. But curiosity, or maybe grief, pushed me to open one more. It was dated 2 weeks before Betrayal gave me the phone. Tyler's voice came through, softer than usual. "Hi, Dad. I had a dream last night. You were in it. We went to the museum again, Al. The one with the T-Rex. You let me touch the bones, even though the sign said not to. Then we went to the gift shop, and you bought me that space book. I miss that book. I miss you." There was a pause, then a sniffle. "I don't like it here. I want to come home." I put the phone down and walked into the bedroom. I didn't cry this time. I just sat in silence, staring at the ceiling, wondering what it would take to rebuild a child who's been told lies for almost a year. On Monday, we filed everything. The judge scheduled the custody hearing. We weren't just requesting visitation. We were filing for emergency review, citing psychological harm, alienation, and manipulation. Adriana warned me that it wouldn't be easy. Miranda's going to deny everything. Cry. Blame stress. Maybe say you're manipulating the kid. But we have the evidence. We just need to stay calm, stay focused, and let her unravel. I nodded, but I couldn't stop thinking about Tyler. I wondered what he'd say if he was asked to speak in court. Would he be brave enough? Would he even be allowed? As if reading my mind, Adriana said, "If the judge sees value in hearing from Tyler directly, we may request it. It has to come from him, though. Not you." That gave me hope. Because if there was one thing I knew, my son had already tried to be heard. If the court gave him even 5 minutes, I had no doubt he'd tell the truth. Still, the nights were hard. I'd lie awake, thinking about how much trust had been broken, how many lies Miranda had stacked between us like bricks in a wall. But I also knew something else. We had cracked her wall. She had underestimated us. She had underestimated him. And that video, the one she made, laughing and smug, would be the very tool that dismantled her story. She thought she was clever, replacing those photos on the wall. But she forgot one thing. Kids remember who used to tuck them in, who used to chase them around the living room in sock feet, who used to kiss their scraped knees and read them bedtime stories about dinosaurs and spaceships. She replaced the photos, but she couldn't replace me. And now we had a case to prove it. The day the hearing date was confirmed, I sat in my car for a full 30 minutes after leaving the courthouse, hands gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing tethering me to the earth. The clerk's voice still echoed in my head. "Your emergency custody hearing is scheduled for 2 weeks from today." 2 weeks. 14 days. After 10 months of being painted as a ghost, I was finally going to speak, not through lawyers or paperwork, but in front of a judge, across from the woman who had tried to erase me from my son's life. Miranda. I hadn't seen her in nearly a year. Not in person. Not even on video. She'd gone out of her way to make sure I had no images of her new life. No breadcrumbs to follow. No glimpses of the world she built where I didn't exist. But soon, we'd be sitting across from each other, forced to face what she'd done. Adriana called it a turning point. I called it a reckoning. We spent the next week preparing. I went through mock interviews, reviewed transcripts, sat through long sessions where Adriana drilled me with questions she predicted the other side might ask. Did you ever lose your temper in front of Tyler? No. Did you abandon the family home willingly? I left because Miranda threatened to call the police over a disagreement about dinner. I left to de-escalate. I thought it was temporary. Have you made any attempts to coerce or manipulate the child? No. All I've done is try to find him. Legally. Respectfully. Quietly. She nodded after every answer. Good. Stay steady. This isn't a game. But we both know the truth is on your side. Marcus, ever the tech wizard, organized the final evidence packet. Each exhibit had a tab, a timestamp, and a note explaining its relevance. The video of Miranda mocking me, the audio clips of Tyler, the photos with replaced frames. It all told a single story, a mother rewriting the past, one lie at a time. I kept thinking about how the court would respond. I'd read enough horror stories to know family court didn't always work the way it should. But this time, we had something different. We had my son's voice. The night before the hearing, I didn't sleep. I tried. God knows I tried. But my mind wouldn't stop. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined Tyler's face, how much older he might look, whether he'd be scared to speak in front of strangers, whether he even knew I was coming. I got up around 3 a.m. and found myself standing in front of his old toy shelf. I hadn't touched it in months. The dust had gathered on top of his favorite dinosaur, the one he used to carry everywhere. I wiped it off and held it for a long time, remembering the day we bought it at the museum gift shop. He named it Terry, even though it was clearly a raptor. That's when I knew what I had to do. I packed the dinosaur and a picture of the two of us from his 5th birthday into a small bag. Not as evidence, as a message. If I got even 1 second with him, I wanted him to know I still remembered everything, that I never stopped being his dad. The morning of the hearing, the courthouse was colder than I remembered. Adriana and I walked through security, our heels echoing on the marble floor. I could feel the weight of every step. My palms were sweating. When we entered the courtroom, Miranda was already seated at the front with her lawyer, Christopher Dole. She looked composed, polished, wearing a pale blue suit I'd never seen before. Her expression didn't change when she saw me. Not a flinch, not a blink. Just that blank, confident stare she'd perfected over years of getting her way. But what struck me most wasn't her expression. It was the absence of guilt. She looked like a woman who still believed she would win. The bailiff called us to rise. The judge entered, a stern-looking woman named Judge Harrington. Sharp eyes. No nonsense. The kind of person who probably read bedtime stories with a gavel in one hand. Adriana opened the proceedings with grace and clarity. She presented our case in a firm, unwavering tone. She didn't dramatize. She didn't beg. She simply laid it out. I had been denied access to my son for nearly a year despite legal rights. I had made documented efforts to reconnect. And I had evidence, undeniable evidence, of the mother's attempts to alienate the child and manipulate the narrative. Christopher, of course, tried to paint a different picture. Your Honor, he began, slick and theatrical, this is a case of a father who grew distant, then weaponized technology to launch a campaign of paranoia and control. My client has acted in the child's best interest throughout. I wanted to laugh. Best interests? Adriana stood again, flipping a tab in the binder. If the court will allow, she said, we'd like to present evidence gathered from a device belonging to the child himself. This device was not planted. It was not hacked. It was a phone given by the father years ago and used voluntarily by the child to communicate in private moments. We also have testimony that the child requested to speak if permitted. Judge Harrington tilted her head. The child has made such a request? Yes, Your Honor, Adriana confirmed. He would like to share something in his own words. That's when Miranda's mask finally cracked. Her lips twitched. Her hand stiffened slightly around her pen. Christopher stood. Objection. This is highly irregular. Children should not be put in the middle of legal disputes between parents. The judge's eyes narrowed. You claim the child is safe and content with your client. If that's true, why would his own words be considered a threat? He had no answer. The judge looked to the child advocate in the room. Has the boy expressed a clear desire to speak? The advocate nodded. Yes, Your Honor. He's been prepared and understands the importance of honesty. He's articulate, respectful. He knows what he wants to share. Then bring him in, Judge Harrington said, tapping her gavel once. And just like that, the courtroom changed. The door opened slowly. Tyler walked in, flanked by the advocate and a clerk. I didn't move. I didn't wave. I didn't even breathe. I just watched. He looked taller, a little thinner. His hair was shorter. But his eyes, those same curious, warm, sky-colored eyes, looked directly at me for a brief, flickering second. Then he turned toward the judge. "Hi," he said softly. "Hello, Tyler," the judge replied gently. "I understand you want to share something with us?" He nodded, then pulled a small tablet from his backpack. "This is a video from my mom's phone. I saved it because I think it shows what really happened." Miranda's face drained of color. Christopher stood again. "Your Honor, this is inappropriate." "Sit down," the judge snapped. Tyler tapped the screen. The room went silent. And then, her voice filled the chamber. "Miranda," laughing. "Miranda," mocking me. "Miranda," pointing at a wall where my pictures once were. "Miranda," replacing them without a second thought. The judge didn't look at me. She didn't need to. Every person in that courtroom saw the truth. And when the video ended, my son whispered, "I just want to be with someone who remembers me." The silence that followed was louder than any scream. When the video ended, no one said a word. The sound of my son's voice, so soft yet so sharp, still lingered in the room. I could hear it like an echo. "I just want to be with someone who remembers me." It was the kind of sentence that doesn't leave a wound, it opens one. And every adult in that courtroom was standing inside it, exposed and silent. The judge sat still for several seconds, not even blinking. Her pen rested motionless between her fingers, halfway through a note that never got finished. The bailiff had stopped shifting. Even the clerk, who'd been typing steadily throughout the hearing, had frozen with her hands above the keyboard. All eyes were on Miranda. But I didn't look at her. I couldn't. I only looked at my son. Tyler was standing there, tablet clutched to his chest like it was the last piece of something sacred. He didn't look scared. He looked tired. Like a child who had carried a secret too heavy for too long and had finally placed it down in the middle of the room for everyone to see. Miranda shifted in her seat. Her face had gone pale, and the confident mask she wore when we entered that courtroom had vanished like mist. She tried to speak, opened her mouth, closed it, looked at her attorney. Nothing came out. Christopher, now clearly rattled, stood up, brushing imaginary lint from his suit. "Your Honor," he started, voice cracking slightly. "If I may, this video, while compelling, was taken out of context. My client was under emotional strain. We don't know the conditions in which it was recorded." The judge turned to him so slowly it was almost cinematic. "I don't need context," she said, voice low and clipped. "What I saw was a mother mocking her son's relationship with his father, intentionally removing any trace of that father from his environment and dismissing her actions as humorous." "Do you find it humorous, Mr. Dole?" He stammered. "No, Your Honor. She raised her hand. "Enough." Then she turned her attention to Tyler. "Young man, thank you for being brave. I know this isn't easy. Is there anything else you want to say?" Tyler hesitated for just a second, then nodded. He looked straight at Miranda. "I kept asking to see Dad," he said. "And Mom always had a reason. She said he left. She said he didn't care anymore. But I remembered what he said before he moved out. He said he'd come back for me." He looked back at the judge. "So I waited. And then I used the phone. I started talking to it, pretending he could hear me. And I found her video by accident. I just wanted to know why he never came. But now I know it wasn't him. It was her." He said the word her like it was something bitter he had to spit out. A soft gasp came from the back of the room. I turned and saw Brielle sitting quietly near the rear bench. She wasn't crying, but her eyes glistened. She met my gaze and gave a slight nod, the kind you give when someone finally sees the thing you've been screaming about for months. The judge leaned forward, hands clasped. "Thank you, Tyler. You may return to your seat." Tyler walked slowly, shoulders hunched from the weight of everything he'd just said. The child advocate gently guided him to the side of the courtroom. Then, silence again. Miranda finally stood up, and her voice, when it came, was a far cry from the polished, rehearsed tone she used at the start. "Your Honor," she said, I made mistakes, but I was hurt, abandoned. I was trying to protect my son from confusion. He was so young and Judge Harrington raised one eyebrow. Protect him from confusion? By cutting off his father and replacing his photographs? By lying about his absence? Miranda's voice cracked. I didn't know how to handle it. I was overwhelmed. I didn't expect. "You didn't expect to be caught," the judge said flatly. Christopher tried to interrupt, but she didn't let him. "Mrs. Taylor," she continued, Your son demonstrated more emotional clarity in 2 minutes than I've seen from you throughout this proceeding. You used your authority not to nurture, but to control. You manipulated truth, distorted memory, and attempted to erase a parent-child bond for your own comfort. That is not a custody dispute. That is psychological warfare. Miranda's knees seemed to buckle, but she held herself upright. The judge turned her gaze to Adriana. Do you have any further evidence or comments, Ms. York? Adriana shook her head, calm as ever. No, Your Honor. We believe the child's voice, combined with the supporting media, speaks for itself. Indeed it does, the judge replied. Then she leaned back in her chair and took a long breath before continuing. This court finds sufficient cause to issue an emergency custody order. Full temporary custody is awarded to the father, effective immediately. The mother will have supervised visitation only, under court-approved conditions. Furthermore, I am ordering a mandatory psychological evaluation and parenting classes for Mrs. Taylor, with a review in 90 days. The gavel came down. A single, hard crack. Just like that, the silence shattered. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just exhaled, so slowly it felt like I was deflating. My eyes went to Tyler, who hadn't moved. He was staring at me with a look I'll never forget. Not confusion. Not joy. Relief. The kind of relief that said, you kept your promise. Miranda collapsed into her seat. Her lawyer leaned in, whispering something urgent, but she didn't hear him. Or maybe she didn't care anymore. I gathered my things quietly, my heart thudding with a mixture of victory and sorrow. I hadn't just won custody. I'd witnessed the truth pour out of a 7-year-old like it was oxygen he'd been holding in for far too long. As I turned to leave, the child advocate brought Tyler over to me. He stood there for a moment, as if unsure what to do. Then he reached into his backpack and handed me something. Terry the dinosaur. You kept it, I said, my throat tightening. He nodded. I want him to go home now. We walked out together, his small hand in mine, into a world that suddenly felt real again. The ride home that afternoon was quiet, not awkward, not strained, just still. Tyler sat in the back seat, holding Terry the dinosaur in both hands like a fragile trophy. Every few seconds, I caught him glancing at me through the rearview mirror, and when our eyes met, he didn't look away. He just watched me, like he was still deciding whether I was real. I didn't speak unless he spoke first. Adriana had warned me about this moment, the aftershock. She said it would feel like a win, but it would sting like a scar. I didn't understand what she meant until I had my son beside me and realized he was both here and not here. His body sat beside me, but part of him was still trapped in the chaos Miranda had created. And that part was going to take time to heal. When we finally pulled into my driveway, Tyler sat still for a beat before getting out. He looked at the house like it was a museum he'd been to before but didn't quite remember. I opened the door for him, but he hesitated on the porch. Is my room still here? He asked quietly. I nodded. Exactly the way you left it. He stepped inside slowly, eyes scanning every corner. I had kept it all. Tyler walked over to his bookshelf and picked up a picture of us fishing at Lake Monroe, his first time catching anything bigger than a leaf. I printed it out after he left, hoping he'd remember that day. Did Mom throw this one away? He asked without looking at me. I don't know, I said honestly, but I saved it. He set it back down and nodded. Good. We didn't talk much that first night. I let him have space, let him explore the house at his own pace. He opened drawers, peeked into the fridge, walked through the hall like a boy revisiting his childhood after too long. At one point, I heard him open the closet where I kept board games, and I heard him whisper, still here. It wasn't until bedtime that he said something that cracked me wide open. Can I sleep in your room? He asked. Just for tonight. I didn't answer with words. I just pulled back the covers and scooted over. He curled up beside me, and for a while, we just lay there in silence. Then, in the dark, his voice came, barely more than a whisper. Did you forget me, Dad? I turned to him and placed my hand on his shoulder. Never, I said. Not for a second. He didn't cry, but I heard his breath catch, like he was trying to hold something in. I didn't press. I just stayed close. That night, he finally slept without his phone. The next few days were a careful mix of routine and repair. I took time off work. We went for walks. Cooked breakfast together. He helped me water the plants in the backyard, even though he said he hated the smell of the hose. Every little task became a way to rebuild trust, not just between us, but between him and the world. Miranda called on the second day. The supervised visitation schedule had been assigned, and the court had arranged a monitor for weekly 30-minute calls. Tyler agreed, but when I handed him the phone, I could see the hesitation in his body. He held it like it might burn him. The call was polite, short. Miranda tried to be cheerful, overcompensating with a tone that didn't quite fit. "Hey, baby. I miss you so much. Are you eating okay? Is Daddy taking good care of you?" Tyler's replies were stiff. "Yes. I'm fine. Yes." When she asked if he wanted to come back home soon, he didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I am home." I don't think she expected that. I stayed out of the room during their call, but when it ended, he walked up to me with a strange expression. Not angry. Not sad. Just thoughtful. "She sounded like someone from TV," he said. Like she was acting. I knelt down to his eye level. "You don't have to pretend with me, okay?" He nodded. "I know. It was a good moment. But good moments don't mean everything's fixed." That evening, I found him sitting alone in his room, staring at the nightlight. He looked smaller than usual, curled up with Terry in his lap. "Do you think she meant it?" he asked suddenly. "Meant what?" "When she said I didn't need you." I walked in and sat beside him, taking a long breath before speaking. "She was wrong, Tyler. People say things when they're angry or scared. Sometimes they say things they know aren't true because they want to feel powerful. But that doesn't make it right. And it doesn't make it real." He nodded slowly. "But why did she want me to forget you?" That question stabbed me in a place no court could reach. "Because she was hurting," I said. "But hurting people sometimes do hurtful things. That doesn't mean it's your fault. And it doesn't mean you have to forget anything you don't want to." He didn't reply, but I saw the tension in his shoulders ease just a little. He leaned into my side and stayed there, quiet. The next call went the same. So did the one after that. Miranda began to show cracks in her voice. She tried jokes. She tried guilt. She even tried telling him he'd left his favorite shirt behind and maybe he could come pick it up sometime. Tyler said, "You can give it to Aunt Brielle." That one must have stung. She started crying during the fourth call. Claimed she missed him. Said she was in therapy now. That things were changing. I didn't interfere. I never told Tyler what to say. I just listened from a distance, knowing that nothing I could say would matter more than how he felt in those moments. And the truth was, he wasn't angry. He was distant. That's what hurt Miranda most. He wasn't fighting her. He was just letting go. I called Adriana that week to give her an update. She listened quietly and said, "He's finding his own boundaries." That's a good sign. "Do you think he'll forgive her?" I asked. She paused. "Maybe. Kids can be incredibly resilient. But it depends on her. Not on you. You've done your part." I hung up feeling a strange blend of pride and sorrow. We'd won. But it wasn't really a win. It was the start of something harder, recovery. Tyler still had bad nights. Sometimes he'd wake up asking if I was going to leave too. Other times he'd hear a song or a word Miranda used to say and shut down completely. But each time, I'd stay. I'd wait. And slowly, he'd open back up. This wasn't the life I imagined. But it was ours now. And it was finally honest. Rebuilding trust with a child doesn't happen in grand gestures. It's not a big speech or a single moment that fixes everything. It's the quiet stuff, the slow return to routine, the subtle change in how they look at you, the way they start to ask for help with things again. It's the simple, silent proof that you're not going anywhere. For Tyler and me, it began with pancakes. Sunday morning. His favorite breakfast. I didn't even ask if he wanted them. I just made them the same way I used to, extra butter, a little smiley face of strawberries and blueberries on top. I set the plate down in front of him at the table and watched as he stared at it for a second. Then he gave me a small smile. Tight-lipped, but real, and picked up his fork. "Still the best pancakes," he mumbled. That meant more than he probably realized. We fell into a rhythm after that. Mornings were quiet. He'd get ready for school, and I'd pack his lunch, always slipping in a sticky note with a joke or a simple "proud of you." Evenings were a mix of homework, short walks, and games. We'd play old board games that had been gathering dust. At first, he played like it was an obligation. But gradually, he got into it again, especially when he started winning. One night, we were playing Connect 4, and he beat me 3 times in a row. He pumped his fist in the air and said, 3-0. "Maybe you forgot how to play, old man." I laughed. "You calling me old already?" He shrugged. "You've been gone a long time." It wasn't said with anger, just honesty. "I know," I replied. "But I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere." He didn't say anything back, but I noticed he left his bedroom door open that night. Progress. Rebuilding also meant giving him space to feel things, messy things. Some days he was energetic, laughing and asking 100 questions about dinosaurs and space. Other days he was withdrawn, quiet, picking at his food and staring out the window like he was waiting for someone to arrive. On one of those days, I found him in the backyard lying on the grass. I walked out and sat beside him without speaking. After a long pause, he whispered, "Do you think Mom lied to me because she hated you?" I looked up at the sky with him. I don't know what she felt. Maybe she thought she was doing what was best. Maybe she was scared. Sometimes people make the wrong choices when they don't want to feel like they failed. He was silent for a moment, then asked, "Did she fail?" I turned to him. "I think she forgot what being a parent really means." "And what does it mean?" "Being there. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." He nodded and pulled Terry the dinosaur closer to his chest. That night, he asked if I could read him one of the old bedtime books. The one about the boy who builds a rocket ship to visit the moon. We hadn't read it together in over a year. He handed it to me without a word, crawled under the covers, and waited. As I read, he closed his eyes and listened, mouthing a few of the familiar lines under his breath. When I finished, he opened his eyes and whispered, "You didn't forget the voices." "Of course not," I said. "I never forgot anything." He rolled over and whispered into his pillow, "I'm glad." From then on, bedtime stories returned. So did silly conversations in the car, grocery store debates over which cereal to buy, and movie nights where we'd quote every line from his favorite cartoons. Slowly, the stiffness in his body melted. He started to lean into me when we sat together, started to laugh louder, started to trust. But trust, like healing, isn't always a straight line. One afternoon, after school, Tyler burst into the house in tears. He slammed his backpack down and ran straight to his room. I followed after him, heart pounding. "Tyler? What happened?" He was curled up on his bed, fist clenched. "Someone at school said I'm a court kid, that my parents are fighting over me like a prize." "Is that true?" I sat beside him slowly. "You're not a prize, Tyler. You're a person. A really good one. And what happened in court wasn't a fight over you. It was a fight for you." He looked up at me with watery eyes. "Then why does it feel like I did something wrong?" I shook my head and pulled him close. "You didn't. None of this is your fault. You're not responsible for what adults say or do. You didn't break anything." He sobbed quietly into my shirt for a while. When he finally calmed down, he asked something that caught me off guard. "Do you think Mom loves me?" I swallowed hard. "Yes," I said. "I think she does. But love isn't just a feeling. It's actions. And she has to learn how to show that in the right way." "Do you love her?" That one hurt. But I answered honestly. "I don't know anymore. I loved who she used to be. But people change. Sometimes they grow apart. What I do know is I'll always love you. That will never change." He didn't respond, but he held my hand tighter. When Miranda called the next week, the conversation was even shorter than usual. She asked about school. He gave one-word answers. She asked about me. He said, "He's nice. He makes pancakes again." Then he handed the phone back to the court supervisor and walked away. After the call, I found him in the kitchen, eating apple slices. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded. "She said she wants to come visit. Do you want her to?" He shrugged. "I don't know yet. Maybe later." That answer felt like everything we'd worked for. He had the power now. The choice. The voice. I told Adriana what happened, and she said, "That's emotional intelligence, right there." He's setting boundaries. He's not being cruel. He's protecting himself. As the weeks went on, his joy came back in pieces. I watched him start to hum again when brushing his teeth. Saw him draw pictures of us together, always with Terry in the corner of the page. When we went to the zoo, he didn't flinch when he saw families laughing around him. He laughed too. The biggest moment came one Saturday afternoon. I was fixing something under the sink when Tyler came in and tapped my shoulder. "I want to show you something," he said. He led me to his room and handed me the red phone, the one I thought he'd stopped using. "There's one last thing I recorded. A new one." I sat on his bed and played it. "Hi, Dad. This is just a test. But also, I wanted to say thank you. You didn't forget me. You came back like you said. You didn't stop loving me, even when I thought maybe you had. And now I know the truth. I love you. That's all." I didn't cry this time. I just hugged him. And in that moment, I knew something for certain. He was healing. Not because the past had disappeared, but because he finally knew he was safe in the present. It had been a little over a month since the court hearing, and Tyler was settling into his new reality with a quiet strength that amazed me. He still had moments of hesitation, like when a car pulled up too quickly near the house, or when a woman at the grocery store wore the same perfume as his mother. But overall, there was peace in our home again. A rhythm. A softness. The kind of calm you only notice when you've survived a storm. Then one morning, my phone buzzed with a message from Adriana. Christopher Dole has sent a visitation proposal on Miranda's behalf. Says she's seeking unsupervised visits. Wants to meet? Do you want to respond? I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. My first instinct was a hard no. After everything she'd done, after erasing me from our son's life, mocking me in videos, and lying with a smile, I couldn't imagine handing her that kind of access again. But I didn't reply yet. I thought about Tyler. He was the reason I had done all of this. Not to punish her, but to protect him. And if he had a future that involved his mother, even if it was small, even if it was cautious, then I needed to think carefully. I texted Adriana back. Set the meeting. I'll listen. It happened that Friday, in the neutral zone of a courthouse cafe. No suits, no judges, no audience. Just Miranda, her attorney, and me. She was already seated when I arrived, sipping tea like she hadn't shattered everything between us. Her makeup was soft, minimal. She looked tired. Not like the polished version of herself from court, but like the woman I used to know, before everything got twisted. She stood when I approached, which surprised me. Thank you for coming, she said. I sat down without replying. Christopher opened the conversation. We appreciate you taking time to hear us out. Miranda has been attending therapy sessions twice a week. She's completed 2 parenting workshops and has expressed sincere remorse. I didn't even look at him. I looked at her. Have you? I asked, my voice even. Expressed sincere remorse? Her eyes dropped for a second. Then she nodded. I have. I know I don't deserve a free pass. I know I broke things that may never be fixed. But I'm trying. Trying to do what? I asked. Trying to be someone Tyler can trust again. For a second, the old pain flared in my chest, because once upon a time, she was someone I trusted. I used to share my dreams with her. We named our son together. We danced in the kitchen on Friday nights while he giggled in his high chair. That woman, whoever she used to be, was gone. But maybe, just maybe, this version sitting across from me wanted to be better. She continued. When I lost in court, I was angry. Not just at you. At myself. Because I realized I'd spent so long trying to win something that wasn't supposed to be a competition. Tyler's love. His loyalty. His childhood. I tried to control everything, and I nearly destroyed it all. I let the silence hang for a beat, then said, You did destroy a lot. She nodded slowly. I know. Christopher cleared his throat. Given her progress and compliance with the court's requirements, we're requesting a revised schedule. Unsupervised weekend visits, beginning with daytime hours and slowly building from there. I leaned back in my chair. And what does Tyler say? That stopped them. Miranda swallowed. He's polite when we talk, but he's distant. I don't blame him. I lied to him. I hurt him. I crossed my arms. So why do you think he's ready for unsupervised visits? She looked me in the eye. I don't. But I want him to know I'm willing to do the work. Even if he says no. Even if he pushes me away. I want him to see me try. There it was, that word again. Try. I stared at the table for a moment, then said, Tyler decides. Not you. Not me. Him. I'll offer the option. If he says yes, it's on my terms. And you don't push. If he says no, you wait. Miranda looked down at her tea. That's fair. Christopher nodded. We'll draft an agreement with those conditions. No need, I said. He'll let me know. When I got home, Tyler was building a tower of Legos in the living room. I sat beside him, picking up a few pieces to help. After a few minutes, I said, Your mom asked if you'd be open to visiting her outside the calls. He didn't respond. Just kept building. There's no pressure, I said. You get to decide. It's your call. I'll back you no matter what. He set a Lego piece down and said, Would you come with me? If you wanted me to? Yes. He nodded. Maybe. Not yet. That's okay. I said. You don't owe anyone anything. Not even her. That seemed to take the weight off his shoulders. He leaned into me for a second before getting back to work. The next call with Miranda was different. Tyler was calm, measured. She asked how school was. He answered. She asked about the Lego set. He showed her the tower on screen. Then she asked if he wanted to visit. He looked straight at the camera and said, Not now. Maybe later. I'm not ready. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. She just nodded and said, Okay. I'll wait. And I believed her. Because for once, she didn't try to take the moment back. After the call, Tyler sat beside me on the couch. "Do you think she's really trying?" he asked. I thought about it. "I think she's trying now," I said. "Trying to be better. That doesn't mean everything's okay. But it means she's not pretending anymore." He nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe that's enough." Later that week, I got an email from Christopher with no legal documents attached. Just a simple note. "Thank you for allowing space for healing. That's more generous than most." But I didn't do it for them. I did it for the boy who sat beside me every night with hope still flickering in his chest. Mercy isn't weakness, and strength doesn't always come from saying no. Sometimes, strength is knowing when to leave the door open, just wide enough for someone to find their way back through it. If they choose to, if they deserve to. And for the first time in a long while, I believed Miranda might actually try. But the choice wouldn't be hers to make anymore. It would be Tyler's. And that was the way it should have always been. It's been 7 months since that day in court, the day Tyler played the video that shifted everything. 7 months since the silence shattered and the truth echoed louder than all the lies Miranda tried to bury us under. You'd think time would dull the memory, but some moments don't fade. Some moments brand themselves into your soul. That video, it didn't just change the case. It changed us. It gave us the oxygen we didn't know we'd been gasping for. It reminded a little boy that he wasn't crazy. And it reminded his father that holding on, despite everything, wasn't foolish. It was necessary. I still remember the way Tyler looked at me after we left the courtroom, clutching his dinosaur like it was the only thing steady in his world. He didn't smile. He didn't speak much. But when we got into the car and I buckled him in, he whispered, "I did it, right? You told the truth," I said. "That's all that mattered." Since then, we've slowly learned to live again. Not just survive, but live. Tyler's school counselor called me 2 weeks after he came to stay with me full-time. She told me he was doing better than expected, participating in class, raising his hand again, even volunteering to lead the morning pledge. "He's still cautious," she said. "But there's a light there, and he's proud of something. I don't know what, but it's keeping him strong." I knew exactly what it was. "Want me to leave?" He shook his head. I was just remembering. Remembering what? That I wasn't wrong. That sentence made me sit down beside him. He rewound the clip and played the part where Miranda laughed and pointed at the empty wall, saying I'd been forgotten. Then he paused it. "I thought I made it up," he said. "When she told me I was imagining things, that I was being dramatic." I almost believed her. I placed my hand gently on his shoulder. "That's what gaslighting does, Tyler. It makes you doubt what you see, what you feel, even what you know. But that video proved you were right. And more importantly, you knew you were right even before you had proof." He nodded. "That's why I watch it sometimes. Just to remind myself I'm not crazy." "You're not," I said. "You never were." After that, the video became something more than evidence. It became his armor. He didn't show it to his friends. He didn't even talk about it much outside the house. But it was there, quietly reinforcing his confidence when he needed it. Sometimes, it's not about exposing the villain. Sometimes, it's about validating the hero. As weeks turned into months, I watched Tyler slowly step into his power. He stopped freezing up when Miranda called. He asked to reschedule calls when they clashed with his activities. He told me, on his own, that he was ready to try a supervised visit in person. It was short, quiet, but he returned without falling apart. "She didn't lie this time," he said afterward. "She just listened." I didn't press for more. I just hugged him and told him I was proud of his bravery. We started doing new things together. Camping, mini golf, Saturday cooking experiments that usually ended with flour all over the floor and burnt edges on everything. He started asking questions about my work, about space again, about how rocket ships are built and why stars burn out. He asked if we could take another trip to the science museum soon. I told him yes. Life didn't go back to how it was before, but it moved forward with honesty. Miranda continued her therapy. The court kept her on the supervised list, though she petitioned for more time. I didn't fight it. I let Tyler decide the pace. Some weeks he agreed. Others he didn't. But the difference now? She respected his answer. Maybe because she knew if she didn't, he'd walk away again. This time, on his own terms. One rainy Friday evening, we sat watching an old cartoon he used to love. Tyler curled into my side, Terry between us. During a commercial, he turned to me and asked something I didn't expect. "Do you think she changed?" I thought about it. "I think she's trying. That counts for something." He nodded. "I don't hate her, but I don't trust her yet. That's okay, I said. Trust isn't something you owe anyone. It's something they earn. He leaned back into me. You earned it. That moment didn't need any follow-up. It just was. Solid. Whole. Later that night, while brushing his teeth, he said, I think I want to delete the video someday. Not because it didn't matter, but because I don't want to need it anymore. I stared at him through the mirror and said, when you're ready, we'll do it together. Because that's what this has always been about. Togetherness. Through fear. Through truth. Through rebuilding. That video set us free. Not because it punished someone, but because it proved something no one could take away. Tyler's voice mattered. His experience mattered. And I hadn't given up on him. Not for a single day, even when the world told me to. Sometimes, I replay that courtroom moment in my mind. Not out of spite, but as a reminder of how fragile and powerful the truth can be. The way Miranda's voice cracked. The way the judge's gaze turned cold. The way the courtroom fell into that long, stunned silence. And then, Tyler's words. Soft. Brave. I just want to be with someone who remembers me. That line will echo in me forever. Because that's all any of us want, isn't it? To be remembered. To be chosen. To not be erased. He gave the court a truth they couldn't ignore. And in doing so, he gave both of us something we thought we'd lost. A way back to each other.